Hello ladies and gentlemen, BTM here bringing you another narrated Age of Empires 3 match. This is a 1v1 on the map Yukon. I am playing Russians in orange against a person playing as Portuguese in blue. I'm currently rated as a Master Sergeant. He is rated as a First Lieutenant. So there is a discrepancy in our ranks. He is slightly better ranked, but I am, of course, I would argue, if I may be so generous to myself, slightly underranked. So I don't feel that this is too much of a mismatch, although I was a little bit trepidatious before I began this game. But before I get into any analysis of all that, though, let me first apologize for not getting a video to you on Friday. My life got a little bit hectic, and as you know, they say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. However, I chose to take a nap and then probably eat some crackers and read a book instead of making a YouTube video for all of you. So my apologies, but usually when things get crazy, YouTube is the thing I kind of put on the back burner until I can handle everything else well again. So with that being said, we are of course bringing you your Monday matches you expect, and there will be another match this Friday, so stay tuned. But let's get into this match. We are of course playing as Russians against a Portuguese. Now there is a trade route stretching from the west of the map, just slightly northwest of our town center, that will go all the way up to nearly the northeast corner of the map. We are of course going to come across that soon, and there is the majority of herds consolidated in the middle of the map, so that is going to inform our game plan. However, if you do watch the game footage right now, you'll notice that I have idle town center time at the beginning of the map, and that is because I was a noob. For some reason, I don't know why, but I just forgot that I had to put up my house immediately with 100 wood. It leads to my villager production being idle for about 4 or 5 seconds. Now, normally, you know, you play a low-level game, against a computer, it doesn't matter. At this level of the game, especially with First Lieutenants and hopefully a Master Sergeant like me that's slightly underrated, you can't make such rookie mistakes like that. That will cost you the game at higher levels. So I'm already kind of had the weight of the world on my shoulders. I'm like, oh no, that was horrible. I had idle town center time. What am I going to do? So then I start trying to creep this treasure, like, oh my goodness. You know, wolves aren't that hard to defeat, but then I accidentally clicked my explorer to walk backwards instead of killing it. So now I have to go through this whole process of killing the wolf, but I will end up doing it and getting some experience from it without too much more trouble. But let me delve into the matchup a little bit more, and that was what I wanted to focus on originally. My card shipment, by the way, is standard, nothing exciting. He's playing as Portuguese, and that of course means that he will get his second town center the minute he hits to the colonial age, and that is going to be a huge issue for us because there's only one central herd on the map and the two trading posts consolidated at the middle of the map. I actually know this map really well, so you know I don't have to scout it out, sorry, and I also know where all the treasures are. But because of the way the resources are distributed on the map, and because Portuguese gets another town center which can act as a drop-off point and allow him to ship some resources there, I already am kind of scared and trying to figure out what I have to do. I clearly have to take the center of the map early. I clearly have to get a lot of pressure on him, but I'm not sure exactly how I want to go about it. I do, however, spy, I believe, a 200 coin treasure, so I am going to go for it. And then I see out of the corner of my eye 135 food, 185 food, and I see the treasure guardian fighting his explorer on the side of the map, and I'm like, I am stealing that treasure. So as that polar bear is fighting, I choose to crack shot it, which was stupid in hindsight. I could have just regular shot it, but I steal that food treasure for him, 150 food straight into my coffers, and I'm actually going to hopefully here kill his explorer with a shot. No, I'm not. His explorer's going to get away, but I just did probably one of the meanest things you can do to somebody in Age of Empires 3. I stole a treasure he had clearly been working on and creeping for quite some time. That is going to help my age up significantly. Speaking of aging up, you may have noticed that I am aging with 17 villagers, and that's of course because I'm playing a Portuguese players. Portuguese is not an aggressive civilization. They just do not move fast in terms of rushing. So I am going to have some time, the luxury of aging up a little bit slower than I normally would. And I am actually going to be sending a villager to go build that blockhouse as early as possible. In my previous games, I tended to build the blockhouse near the end of my transition to the colonial age. I'm going to start this blockhouse way sooner. Now, as you do see, I do get to work on trying to kill those guardians, but I cross my fire. I mess up, and I'm just like, ugh. At this point in the game, besides for stealing that treasure, I definitely felt like I was playing from behind because of my own stupidity, really, and that was kind of like, uh-oh. But you do notice that I do actually walk to the treasure here. Having just had a treasure stolen from me, I was actually a little bit paranoid about losing a treasure, so I'm like, you know what, we're going to get right up to that treasure and then go and deal with it. And I am actually going to put my blockhouse, though, in front of that trading post, and that was actually just kind of my mentality. You guys know me, I love trading posts, I hate markets in this game, so we're going to, of course, try to secure as much of the trade line as we can. Even though there's 4, I'll be completely happy having a solid grip on 2 and then that forward herd. I could have been slightly more aggressive slightly more aggressive and put my blockhouse a little bit further. But considering he was a better player, I did want to play almost a little bit more of a defensive strategy, especially since he's playing as Portugal, and I do not worry about Portugal's ability to boom. I don't think they're very good. So I am, of course, transitioning to the colonial age on 17 settlers. Most of my villagers now are on wood, of course, as I'm aging, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to build a market. I built a market in the last game. You know, I'm trying to become a better player. Building markets are important. I am queuing up more villagers, and I'm not actually sure what I'm going to do now. I am playing a Portuguese player. Portugal generally has two options hitting the colonial age. They can either play a very boomy defensive strategy, which usually involves crossbowmen and pikemen, or they can play a very aggressive strategy, such as, actually, crossbowmen, pikemen, Portuguese are very, very rarely aggressive. I mean, if you are aggressive as a Portuguese player, what I should say is you'll put your town center somewhere forward, and then you'll use it as a shipping point to drop off resources like I'm doing with my blockhouse, and then you'll build behind it and use it to spawn villagers. Now, if you're doing that, you'll either make two army compositions. You'll either go pikemen, crossbowmen, which is a very strong standard combination, nothing special, but it generally gets the job done if microed right, or you'll go with the Expo Hussar, which is much Musketeer Hussar, which is much stronger, but also a lot harder to handle resource-wise and a little bit more vulnerable. So I didn't know what to expect here. So I decided, I don't know what to do. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go with a mixture of Musketeers and Strelets, and I'll worry about my composition as it arrives. Now, if you notice there, I literally pressed the build button for more units on my town center 5 or 6 times, just frantically jamming it, like, why aren't units coming out? I think I had the food, before I realized that I had, of course, population myself, because that's what I do. Notice I do set my waypoint back to my town center. That way I collect the resources. Now, the Portuguese player did start off with 5 Hussars, and that's really, really important, believe it or not. Just seeing those 5 Hussars is actually enough for me to know what he's doing. Generally, people go 5 Hussars if they're going with a 5 Hussar semi-fast fortress. He'll pop out 5 Hussars, and then he'll focus on just going up to the fortress age. This isn't necessarily a bad map to do that either, if he can control some of the hunts to the north as opposed to the ones to the south, and control some of the gold mines and best treasures up there. He could actually be in a good point. The downside for him is that it's really easy for me as Russian to make musketeers, and I'm actually very resistant to raiding because I managed to get my settlers in the town center, and I managed to get all my settlers near a blockhouse or near my army. So I wasn't actually super worried about his attack. Notice, by the way, that I am building a trading post with the settler. That's very questionable, but I have so much wood on hand right now that I thought, you know what, I just want to get that up, and I actually want to upgrade it pretty quickly. I don't know if I upgraded it now or later, but I am going to focus on upgrading the trading post soon. That to me was really important. Unfortunately, I left that treasure unguarded, but I am going to be able to grab it, and there is the trading post upgrade, like I said. That will stop me from making a batch of musketeers, and I am sitting on over 1,000 wood, which is very poor. You definitely don't want to be floating idle resources, but again, I'm playing a Portuguese player, so even though I'm frantically worried about the idea of losing, I'm not worried about him getting fast pressure. Even from those 5 Hussars, he's probably trying to fast fortress, and I'm starting to think, you know what, wait a minute, he's fast fortressing. I probably need to move a little bit more. Having upgraded the trading post and having a good amount of units coming, not a ton, but a decent amount, is probably pretty solid, but I'm going to need to do better. So I am, of course, going to wait to queue up another batch of musketeers. No, I'm not. I'm just going to start walking. I'm then going to queue up another batch of musketeers, and then I just want to go kind of get some pressure on him. I have sent my 700 food shipment, and my goal, since I'm running out of food, is to just put pressure on him. That's my entire goal, just to kind of slow him down, maybe even keep him in the colonial. I don't know what he's doing. He's so strange. You see 5 Hussars, nothing else, and then that was that. So I am going to end up building another forward blockhouse. Again, trying to limit the amount of resources I'm floating, be a little bit more reasonable, and I'm going to push in with my mass of about 13, 14, 15 musketeers and the same amount of strelets. Now again, I'm just kind of looking around here, seeing what there is. This is a little bit interesting. He put his barracks in front of his town. That's generally not what you do. That's generally considered a little bit stupid, and I am almost going to catch his Hussars with a volley of fire. I only get 1. If I had been paying more attention, I could have gotten 2, but I am going to march forward and get another trading post. At this point, my trading posts are all on experience, so I'm getting experience remarkably fast, faster than I would otherwise. That is going to allow me to ship shipments faster, but it's not necessarily going to provide the resource boom I want just yet. However, I'm not too worried about it. I'm using my shipments to send resources, so in one way I'm still getting resources pretty quickly. However, the massive hussar he's made up is actually kind of intimidating me, so I am going to send my musketeers to melee mode. I know there's a hotkey to do that. Don't tell me in the comments, but do tell me in the comments. Actually, it'd be helpful. I am going to send my musketeers to melee those hussar to the best of their ability, and then I'm going to just pop out 10 more sterlets and 5 more musketeers to cover up his infantry. He does outnumber. No, he doesn't actually. I was a little bit surprised when fighting this. I honestly thought he had me. To me, it just looked like a much more intimidating mass, but he ends up making a little bit of a crucial mistake here. He sees all my settlers gathering, as he should, and he marches forward. The problem is I have so much of my army there at the time that he actually takes tremendous losses and lets the bulk of my army survive there, and doesn't really get any kills on my settlers at all. So for the cost of my settlers coming off resources for just a little bit of time, I basically slaughter a huge chunk of his army, thousands of resources, and leave a huge chunk of mine intact. And I do not know whether I would have won that fight if he had focused on my army first and then went to pressure my settlers. It would have been a much different conflict. So not to trash his decision making there, but I don't think that was a good decision. Now this was, to me, also really interesting. He kind of comes in with hussar again, and to me that didn't make sense, because I'm like, can't you see the massive musketeers here? But no worries. I am sorry for that stutter, my goodness. I am just going to focus on getting the 3rd trading post, because I have upgraded them, and just keep spamming out units. And at this point I'm actually running low on resources, but I've sent a preponderance of my colonial age cards. I'm actually now sending spice trade, and that should tell you just how many of my colonial age cards I've sent. And I have a ton of resources sitting in my town, and that is actually going to enable me to eventually start buying some market upgrades, start pumping out more units, and then just kind of focus on just overwhelming him with sheer numbers. He played definitely a little bit of a slower agenda, I think, and I'm going to punish him for that. That hussar attack was pretty good, except for the fact that he ran into my batch of musketeers. Musketeers are heavy infantry that slaughter hussar. The choosing to attack my villagers instead of focusing on my army, of course, was a mistake. I am going to be able to get a lot of his villagers off food here and kill 1, maybe 2. I do not get the second one. Maybe that was because of poor micro, but again, I was actually trying very fervently to stay out of range of that town center fire to the best that I could, and also keep some space between me and it. I just didn't want to take unnecessary damage. My units tend to be rather squishy as it is, and so for me it was kind of one of those, is that a good idea? Now in comes another 10 or 12 hussar, and this to me made no sense. I get the idea behind musketeer hussar, or musk-huss, so musketeer hussar, but I didn't really see any musketeers coming out. Now at this point he does pop out minutemen. There's no point for me to stay and fight minutemen. They'll slaughter me, but if I can pull out, minutemen of course do lose hit points over time. So for me it was like, you know what, I'm just gonna back out and sit quiet and not make any major mistakes. Unfortunately, it is going to allow me not to kill his hussar, when I felt like if he hadn't had the minutemen coverage, it would have been pretty easy to kill the hussar. With that being said, that was my risk for running into his town. He is going to be able to dispatch that army of sterlets really simply, and surprising to me watching this back, actually, okay, I was going to say, I can't believe I'd marched that army in, but I don't. I do back up there a little bit, because I do sense it would be suicide, but I am just going to keep making villagers, and I have a pretty good resource distribution for massing out musketeers, which seems to be what I need right now. Obviously, his skirmishers are this very powerful, obviously his minutemen, are very powerful light infantry, but they're not going to be able to stop me just because they're expendable and they die pretty quickly. In come more hussars. I have a tremendous amount of musketeers. I do get one hussar dead, 1 minuteman dead, and that's kind of the dangers. While minutemen are definitely a really impressive unit, they're not going to be able to stop me. Now, I made a little bit of a mistake there. Seeing those villagers walk forward, I probably should have circled my main army back. However, I felt I had him on the run, and I wanted to take the opportunities to one-shot the minutemen while I could, and then kill those hussar. I wasn't too worried about it. Again, with 3 trading posts up, 3 of the 4 upgraded, and a pretty steady economy of 12 villagers behind me, I just wasn't particularly worried, and I make a little bit of an interesting decision. I could either have walked backwards to hunt across the map, or I could have walked to his to the hunt right near his town, and I thought because my army's in his town, it'll be a much wiser decision to go to his town. Now, if you had looked up at the top right of the screen right there, top left of the screen, you'd have actually seen those bison or snow yaks or snow somethings walk backwards there as if they were being hunted by his men. So his villagers actually are up there hunting, and I am going to actually get them caught out of position. I had started to move my army back to defend them, but then I kind of got distracted. I am going to lose a few villagers. I don't want to say due impetuance, but just out of stupidity, really. So I'm going to kill them, and then I don't know. I'm being able to destroy that barracks. I have more units coming more or less nonstop. I'm actually sending on a preponderance of coin at this point, so I wasn't too stressed. So I'm just going to keep killing things, letting my villagers be there. I don't really care about losing villagers at this point because he's sitting in his town, and I could tell from the other herds on the map that he didn't look like he was gathering anywhere. His score is pretty indicative of the fact that he's not booming economically. So I just need to kind of take down some of his buildings. He clearly wasn't fast fortressing. He was going with a musketeer hussar agenda, and it didn't work. But look at the amount of Minutemen he pops out. That is simply just going to decimate my forces. However, Minutemen do lose hit points over time, so I'm just going to get out of there. I'm under no threat, no need to engage, because I can just keep making more men. So while that was very much a stopgap, emergency measure for him, I can just pull my forces back, slowly age up with 17 Strelets, which I'll use, and I'll drop off to my forward point as more military, and I'll just choke him out. And this to me was kind of interesting. He actually pursues my Strelets really far back into the hills, but I'm like, alright, that's not a big deal to me. I'll go hunt down some villagers, and then I'll just circle around with this other new army I'm making, and simply wipe out your Minutemen fairly easily. So wasn't too stressed. Sheer numbers was really helping me there. And another video where the trading posts just come in handy. And at this point, I'm just trying to like one-shot as many of these musketeers as I can. I probably should have zoomed in and just killed them because, they lose their health over time, so it's really easy just to take them out all of a sudden with minimal casualties if you micro well. So now I'm going to start trying to micro down the villagers, make more units, and I'm just going to try to chase them around here. I don't think I'll actually find them, or I think actually they'll just march right back to where they were. But again, not a problem considering the amount of men I can keep making. At this point, he's in a little bit of a pickle because I think he initially, I don't know if he initially wanted to go to the Fortress Age or not, but if he wanted to access mercenaries and castadors and his more powerful units, he needed to get to the Fortress Age, and he hasn't been able to. So whatever shenanigans he was trying to do with the Colonial Militia clearly failed, weren't actually helping him, and he was kind of trapped in this position where the more massy civilization, that being Russia, of course, is actually aging up before him, and that's actually going to put him in a really hard spot, a bad spot, if you will, because Russia just focuses on numbers over quality. And so if I get to a point where I'm actually going to have a better quality of units, which I will after I age up, send cannons, and buy upgrades, then it's already 10 ways to good game. He's in massive trouble. The one thing he does have going for him is I haven't been making villagers for quite some time. That's definitely a little bit of sloppy play on my part. But again, not a big deal. His Minutemen are losing health. I can just come and finish the job in a million ways, and I'm about to. He actually chose to engage here, but I fortunately had 17 Strelets pop out right on top of his nose, and he decides there that it is indeed good game because he can't beat a Fortress Age Russian. And I was actually really surprised here. I didn't scout out his town at all. One, because I know what Portuguese does, and two, because I knew the map layout really well. But I was really surprised nonetheless to find that both of his town centers were in the exact same spot. I think that was actually a really rookie play of him because Russians tend to be very good at map control with their blockhouses. On a map like Siberia, no, this is Yukon, pardon me. On a map like Yukon where the resources tend to be gathered in the middle, you have to be aggressive. Notice, by the way, that my villager count was pretty poor, almost as bad as his. Even though he had 2 town centers. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to apologize one more time for not bringing a video on last Friday, and then to tell you there will be a video this Friday. But before I go, I do have a quote from Sun Tzu in The Art of War, and it is this: thus what enables a wise sovereign and the good general to strike and conquer and achieve things is beyond the reach of ordinary men is foreknowledge. Oh wow, holy crap. Thus what enables a wise sovereign and the good general to strike and conquer and achieve things beyond the reach of ordinary men is foreknowledge. So knowing what your enemy will do, reacting to it, planning to it, being 4 moves ahead in chess is the key to being great at this game at any level. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name has been BTM. You have been you. And until next time, good luck and happy hunting. BTM out.